Learning objective 7. Now we're moving on to the terrestrial biomes found on Earth. So what is a biome? A biome is a large land area that has similar environmental conditions and typically characteristic plant communities. So the plants will determine what other kinds of organisms can live in those particular habitats. The first biome I want to tell you about are the tropical rainforests, which you've probably heard a thing or two about. They are found within the tropical regions, so they don't tend to have very pronounced seasons. They typically tend to have high temps, high temperatures year-round. They also tend to have a lot of rainfall, and that water is very good for supporting plant life. And because there's all this great abundance of plant life, there's an abundance of other forms of life there too. So rainforests, tropical rainforests are renowned for their amazing biodiversity and the number of species that we can find within them. Down here you can see a map of where you might find a tropical rainforest. Some throughout Central and South America, through Central Africa, and into Eastern Asia and the islands of Indonesia. So tropical rainforest. These are some pictures that I got to take when I got to go visit the El Yunque in Puerto Rico. You have things like tree ferns and other tropical plants there. Beautiful waterfalls, palm trees, very characteristic of tropical rainforests. These are called liverworts, another kind of plant they're much more diverse and abundant throughout the tropical rainforests. There's my daughters at the base of a rainforest tree, or tree ferns. This is not one of my pictures, but in addition to this great diversity of plant life, there's an amazing diversity of animal life as well. A lot of arboreal monkeys that live in trees, so they can climb around. But then some slower moving organisms like this three-toed sloth. They usually are found up in the trees, but they will come down, apparently weekly, to use the facilities, so to speak, before they climb back up into their trees. This looks like a jaguar that you might find in a New World Central American rainforest. Armadillos. We live in an area where we have one species of armadillo, the 9-banded armadillo. But if you travel through Central and South America, you'll find a lot more species of armadillo. I don't think this is one that you'd find around here. I think this is a giant armadillo. Next biome are savannas. Savannas don't have the rainfall that you see in tropical rainforests. Because they don't have that rainfall, they can't support as many trees. So they tend to be dominated by grasses and small shrubs, but they also support a large diversity of large mammals. Things like you might think of being the typical African animals like elephants and giraffes, wildebeests and antelopes, things like that. These are all creatures of the savannas. Here's some Cape buffalo within a savanna. This looks like a lioness. Not very happy. Okay. Third biome I want to tell you about are deserts. Deserts, as you are probably well aware, typically have very low rainfall, to almost no rainfall on an annual basis. If they have vegetation, most deserts do have some form of vegetation. Actually finding a completely empty desert with no plant life is relatively rare. but the vegetation does tend to be more scattered, not a lot of trees or large plants. But all of the plants and animals in these desert habitats have adaptations to conserve water. And all of the deserts are typically found within a fairly narrow range of latitudes around the equator. This is a horned viper, which is a venomous snake. And you can see it is well adapted to blend in with its sandy surroundings. And there are its horns, which it uses to help sense prey items. Grasslands are a bit higher rainfall than a desert or a savanna, but less so than a forest. So these are like the wide open prairies that used to dominate the Midwestern United States, but also found across large areas in Central Europe. Famous home to the bison, typically called buffalo, but really these are American bison. Temperate forests, you can see, are what we have around here quite frequently. So these are areas where they have a bit higher rainfall than the grasslands, and a lot more than deserts or savannas. So these are habitats that are in temperate areas, and they are dominated by trees. So go outside, you find a forest out there. Around here, that means you're in a temperate forest. And these are also home to a number of familiar animals, deer, squirrels, possums, things of that sort. If you travel to the extreme polar regions, up above the Arctic Circle, you're going to find a lot of tundra. Tundra has very little rainfall. Might have probably most of the precipitation there falls as snow. Temperatures are habitually cold, and most of the vegetation there grows very, very slowly, hardly any trees at all. So a lot of this vegetation are things like mosses and lichens, and a lot of plants that grow very low to the ground. We find a lot of tundra animals up there. Like these are a type of muskox, I believe. Polar bears, things like that are organisms of the tundra. So those are our biomes. And now we're going to look at interactions between living organisms. So these interactions between living organisms, we usually try and assess relationships between different organisms as how they affect the other, how they affect each other. If there's a positive or a negative interaction between the individuals involved. So the first one is competition. Competition typically has a negative effect on both of the organisms involved. Competition can be intraspecific within species, like all these raccoons looking for food. They're going to be competing to obtain their food. Or it can be interspecific. So different species can compete for resources. So there's whatever it is these raccoons want to eat, there's probably other species out there that want to eat it as well. Since raccoons will eat just about anything, they have a lot of competitors. Another example of intraspecific competition are large deer and other horned ruminants like rams and wild goats, things of that sort. They will use those antlers and their horns to fight each other, and that's interspecific competition, which is part of sexual selection. So they are actually competing for access to females of the species that they will be able to mate with and produce new baby animals with. These sea anemones that you can see in this picture, these are marine organisms, but they're undergoing competition too. They are trying to gain access to space so that they can consume food, so there can be competition for space. Second interaction is predation. And for predation, one organism benefits, in this case, that chameleon down there, and the other organism, that cricket that man is holding, is certainly not having the time of its life. It's about to get eaten by a chameleon, so it has a negative effect on the prey. The predator benefits, the prey not so much. So birds of prey, like for the example, this eagle here, they are predators, but that bird that it has captured for food is the prey item, so it's not so lucky. It definitely is negatively affected by this interaction. Tigers, also predators, so they will take down large animals as prey items as well. So tigers win, prey items lose out in this deal. This is a mantis shrimp. This is an example of a marine organism that is a very fierce predator. I've got kind of a funny, silly video that I'll probably I don't think I'll put it in the playlist, but if you're truly interested in learning a little more about mantis shrimps, they're very fascinating creatures. I'll put a link in the description for you to watch if you so desire. Parasitism is another type of relationship where one organism benefits, the other is harmed in the interaction. So parasitism is kind of similar to predation, although usually parasites are much, much smaller than the organisms that they're interacting with. What you're looking at here is a botfly, which can burrow into the skin of certain animals and use them for a nice, warm, nutritious place to pupate and develop into adults. But the organisms that have these botflies burrowing into their skin are endangered by it. It opens them up to infection, discomfort, things of that sort. Fleas and ticks are another example of important parasites. These are ectoparasites because they occur on the outside of the organisms upon which they are parasitic. Bed bugs. Ooh, bed bugs are terrible. They are an important parasite that affects humans, and they've become epidemic in recent years. Lots of bed bugs being found all over the country in hotels and places like that. There are also endoparasites. What we're looking at here is a tapeworm that has been removed from some poor person or animal. Tapeworms live inside their hosts, and because they can live in the gut where there's a lot of nutrients just constantly being passed through the intestines, they don't even require mouths. They can just absorb all the food that they need through through their body. They don't even have a mouth. They can get to be quite large and quite detrimental to their host.